You're listening to the Good News Podcast with Jamie Holtum, brought to you by NBUC.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us on the Good News Podcast. Today, we interview Susan Fennell. Susan was the mayor of Brampton for 14 years, and as she served this city, she made an incredible difference. Today, we're going to hear some of the highlights of her time, the backdoor scene of what it was like to be mayor of the city, her deep love for people, and some of the projects that continue to bless us today. Things like the Rose Theater and the Zoom bus, all part of what Susan and her team did as mayor of Brampton. Again, sit back, relax, enjoy. Let's dive in. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Good News Podcast. And so excited and grateful to have Susan Fennell with us today. Most of you, I'm sure, will know Susan. Susan was mayor of this beautiful city of Brampton for 14 years and a councillor for 12 years before. So 26 years plus in office, serving this city. And I got to tell you, Susan's one of my favorite people. Susan, I just so deeply appreciate you. And not only what you've done, but the way that you've done it, the positivity you bring, the encouragement you bring, the love that you bring. Friends, we're going to dive into all those things as we just talk a bit about what it was like to be mayor and some of the things that Susan was a part of and led. So, Susan, how are you? Let's maybe just start there. How are things for you? We're in the midst of this pandemic. What's life like for you these days? How are you?
Well, thank you, Jamie, for inviting me to be part of the good news. My DNA is always about good news, helping people see the positive each and every hour of each and every day. And I was privileged to have a job that allowed me to, when you're mayor, it's okay to talk to everybody. You could knock on anybody's door. You could pull over at the side of the street if kids are playing and, parents don't run out and say, who's that talking to my child at the curb? It's like, oh, it's the mayor, But no, we're well. John and I are both very, very well. Enjoying being home after not being home for, almost 3 decades. So discovering how nice our house is and our neighbors, meeting the neighbors, some of whom have moved in the last 26 years. And I'm sort of just meeting some of them now, sadly, but wonderfully, because soon the pandemic will be a story we talk about back in the year, whatever, there was a pandemic, and then we'll have time to, socialize and enjoy people. So yes, I love it. I love it.
Well, I know we've had, lots of interactions. Certainly when you were mayor, we worked and served together in the city, and we've continued to just be blessed to be connected and so grateful for that. And we'll talk a bit more as we move on here today about what that retired life has been like, especially for you and for John, too, your husband, because it has been a blessing. And I love how you make the best of whatever stage of life that you're at. I think that's just part of who you are and what you bring and the way God works through you.
I think so.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is so cool. Susan, a lot of people wonder, what is it like to be the mayor of a city the size of Brampton in particular? And so, as you think back to the years that you spent working at this, how would you describe that? Like, what is it like to be the mayor of Brampton?
Well, being a mayor is very different than being a councillor or probably an MP or an MPP. There's only one mayor for the entire city. And it's such a privilege because you become part of people's families. I mean, sure, there's the daytime, there's the business part of running the city, and that's as busy as it could ever be. Mm-hmm. And a government is usually assembling businesses that normally wouldn't function in the private sector because they wouldn't be able to survive, like transit or community services, parks and rec. So these are unrelated activities. The snow plow and the snow clearing and the building of roads has nothing to do with a learn to swim program for babies. Yeah. But government does all of those things because they're the right things to do for as a civil service for the people that live in your community, whether it's safety or access to economic development. So you're promoting having income producing jobs in your city. You're helping somebody in small business just get started. So there's so many business units on the business side of the city that consumes you from, you start the day with breakfast meetings and you finish, so usually a working lunch. and then you try to get out of City Hall in time for your 4 or 5 events in the evening, because the other part of the job is interacting with the community. And you are invited to, well, we used to log them, number the invitations, so we didn't, there was a process, obviously. So at the time now, we were seeing about 3,500 invitations a year. So if you do the math, you think how many hours there are in a day and how many Saturdays. Saturday I could do 10 events. Sunday, maybe 7 or 8. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 3 or 4, and Friday you could probably get in an extra one. So you're really, and you want to be briefed, before you get to somebody's event. But what a privilege! I mean, it's the way I was raised to enjoy the people that how somehow God brings you together. Whether you're standing at a bus stop and you chat to the person beside you, or you're in a lineup at a store, there's interaction. Somehow that interaction came to be. So I naturally talk to everyone I interact with. And I recall when I was first elected, and the same kind of personality exuberance is who I am. And I remember when I was first elected back in 1988, one of the counselors said to me, you could turn that off now. You won the election. I went, what are you talking about?
This is who I am.
I do this all the time. They were like, you do? Yeah, I do. I do. So yes, it's such a privilege. For example, you would be invited to somebody's 80th birthday, 100th birthday, a child's first birthday. Sadly, funerals. Sometimes there's a tragedy in the city, and I know it was so meaningful to people that the office of the mayor. That's the big distinction. When people invite the office of the mayor, I had the privilege to carry that office for the years I was in office. But it was the office of the mayor. People say, you don't have to go to this event or that event. I said, no, but the office of the mayor needs to, because people felt, on Monday or whatever the day, they wouldn't say, oh, Susan came. They'd say, the mayor came.
Yeah.
Mayor came. It makes, it validates, because I'm not coming in as one person. I'm coming in on behalf of several 100,000 people. They hand you a microphone, say, would you say a few words? And you have a chance to thank the volunteers. Most of the events you go to are all powered by volunteers. And you have a chance to say, thank you for what you're doing. What you're doing matters. It's important. Whether, whatever it is, whatever club it is, or church group it is, or business group it is, or sports group, or arts group. Brampton is just filled with people. I say they're very pioneering, because you come to Brampton, we predate Confederation, and you're already seem to be the kind of person that's going to be hardwired to be involved. I used to say if there was a metric of volunteers per capita, Brampton would win by a country mile. Absolutely. Well, we offer sports to youngsters, and people sign up. Well, you can only sign up 20 children in a hockey game if there's 3 parents that check the box that say, I'll coach, assistant coach, trainer, driver, chili maker, all of those things. We've never had any hesitation for the parents of the children saying, we'll coach the soccer, the t-ball, be involved. They're just so involved. Anything you ask the community to do, people say,
amazing.
Yes, it is. It is.
Amazing.
Well, I'm sure you see that at your church. You have attracted the doers of Brampton, and they just keep growing.
Well, thanks. We're definitely in it together. And I have to say, I want to thank you, because my observation that as mayor, you did that so well. Like you got around to so many things. And I just really want to thank you on behalf of everyone. Really appreciate that. And I know that's a commitment, and absolutely, I hear you. Like I never got a sense that you didn't love it. Like that you just loved every second that you got to be with people. Your heart for people is so big. Exactly. And I remember you showing up to a lot of funerals too. And that's really important to be at those. I'd be leading a funeral. I'd say, oh my gosh, it's so awesome that Susan's here, because that means so much to this family. And so just thank you.
Some of those parents where there's been a child lost, particularly if it's tragically, we still remain in touch. I have one lady, we probably exchange on internet or messenger, text, or whatever we're talking on WhatsApp. I don't know. At least once a week. Nice. And I think her son's been gone 10 years now. But, it's the pureness of just being a pure person. For example, when I first went to that particular funeral, sadly, the media is all around because it was a tragedy. And then people call up and say, why would a politician be there? Why are you up at the front row? And I said, well, first of all, it's really not easy to go to these circumstances. If you're a parent, if you're a person, if you're a human being, it's the saddest thing in the world. And because you're carrying the office of the mayor, people see you. They just all move you up to the front, and all of a sudden you're like holding up the mother. I mean, you're going to do, I am going to continue to do for the rest of my life whatever I can for these parents, because their life has changed forever. And there isn't a lot in society to support victims' families. Yeah. But I mean, there's a lot of happy events too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like I have a picture, Susan, I have a picture of you at one of the very first Lucas Holtom carnivals. And as we know, it just became an event that became a signature event in Brampton. It grew like crazy, but at the beginning, it wasn't really that big, of course. It just, was a few hundred people, and then it grew to thousands.
In the parking lot.
Yeah. and so one of those first years, again, you came by to just encourage us and to thank us and to be a part of the day. But I don't know if you remember this. I've got a picture with you on stilts.
I was just going to say, it's funny you thought of that, because as I was talking and you said, you used to go to everything, I was going to say, yeah, sorry about the stilts. I'm glad I didn't fall.
Oh, I love that picture.
Of that?
I do. I'll have to try to get it for you. It's awesome. It's awesome. Now, Susan, this love, it's so clear, like your love for people is so powerful and beautiful, a part of who you are. But how did you end up getting into politics? Like, how did that happen? Because your love for people certainly has been a gift and a strength as you've done that role. But you must have had a calling, or something led you to enter into politics. How did that all happen?
Well, obviously, some higher force was opening doors for me to be considering this particular path. I was working in the private sector after university. And I used to, like so many people in Brampton, drive out of Brampton to your office job. And as I drove out of Brampton, I live in Peel Village area, so around 10 and Steeles, it seemed to me there was a gas station and store on every corner. And I thought, what is with this town? All these gas stations on corners, we could do better. And my parents have always brought me up. If you see something you don't, you think could be done differently, you don't complain. You get involved. You get involved. So I thought, well, how does this happen? Well, that's all part of zoning and public meetings and process and strategizing what you'd like the city you live in to look like. And then I started exploring with one of the counselors, actually at the time, Lorna Bissell. And she said, well, you should come on to council, because we do all this sort of thing. Well, I don't know anybody. I mean, the typical path is, you're involved in a service club, or you're a school trustee, or, you have some profile in the city. I had 2 small children, preschool, and I worked in Mississauga. By the time you come home, pick your kids up, make your dinner, do the laundry, make the lunches, etc. There was little time to, know and be involved in the community. It's very hard for parents today. They don't have a lot of extra time. I know that. I lived it. So I thought about this, and what I used to do now this is going back, so anybody listening is going to, probably if they're young, do you remember the dot matrix printers? They had that paper with the little dots on it when computers first came out. So I would get home after the kids were in bed. I would go on the way home or on the way to work. I would pull up a different street every week or every couple of days, and I would see somebody outside, and I'd talk to them and sort of express my plan. And then I'd go home, and later in the evening, I'd write down, "Dear Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, thank you so much for taking a few moments to speak to me today about whatever they spoke to me about. And I would love the opportunity to represent you should I have that chance. I'll leave my name." And so I'd stick it, buy a box of envelopes for 500 envelopes, inexpensive, print it off on the dot matrix hold it up, and on the way back to work the next morning, I'd leave it in their mailbox. It doesn't cost anything, but it shows interest because it was real. It shows effort because it happened. And when the election came along 2 years later, people said, "Oh, who is this person?" Well, you couldn't rely on anybody knowing who you were, so you had to take the time to introduce yourself to people. And they say, "Well, you can never beat an incumbent, municipally." But I'm not guided by what people say you can't do. I'd rather focus on what I'm doing. And it's important when you want to do something, all the people around you, and often they mean it kindly, like don't waste your time and don't do, it's just, yeah, I'll see you on the other side. I want to try this because I think I can make a difference. Well, I think my parents, my family, everyone was, well, not my children, they were too young. Everyone was probably surprised I won, including my employer, because I took a leave of absence to campaign full time in election year, a couple of months before the election. And they were they were saying, "You don't know anybody. How are you going to get elected?" Again, well, let's not have that conversation. Let's not have the why you won't. Let's migrate around people that say, "Yes, you can." I've always believed that.
Absolutely.
And after I won, I went back to my employer, and this is how positive people are around you. They said, "Listen, this isn't going to last. This isn't going to last." So I had a leave of absence, no pay, nothing. Just there was a job for me after election day that I could go back to. They gave me a 3-year. It was a 3-year term at the time. They gave me a 3-year leave of absence, and they said, "You're going to be back. So we'll save your job." So after I ran for my second election, I ran for regional councillor, and I remember going down and meeting somebody there, and I go, "Well, what do I do now? Can I get another leave of absence, or are we going to worry about this again?" "No, I think you're okay." So thank you for that. But it's kind of, I worked in the private sector, so these aren't environments that are thinking about government positions and so on. But it was. I've often talked to so many people who want to run, and they think they have to have all this, particularly young people. When I talk in high schools, they'd say, "Oh, miss, you probably had it so lucky." And this, what are you talking about? It's just a matter of introducing you. You can't expect somebody to vote for you if they don't know who you are. So your only job is introduce yourself to people. And that doesn't mean put a sign on the lawn of somebody that knows somebody that knows, so they still don't know you. So it does take a moment. And if it's difficult to knock on a stranger's door and just chat about the weather, don't let the air conditioning out or the heat out, depending on the time of the year. If that's awkward, I don't think you're going to enjoy politics very much, because you have to just crave. I love interaction with people.
Yeah. Oh, it shows that love for people. But I love, Susan, what you talk about, like, it's not rocket science. You worked hard, because whatever we do, people are listening to this, working hard is really important, and caring about people is really important. And you cared enough to follow up, to send that letter, to say hi to people, because you really wanted to get to know them. And that's, in my view, that's really huge part of what made you such a great person for this role of mayor. Susan, as mayor, a lot got accomplished. I would say that from my view, these were transformative years for the city of Brampton, where we were really growing and a lot of significant things were happening. As you look back, as you think back, as we want to celebrate that as part of our conversation, we want to say thanks to you for your leadership. I really do. And I know many, many, many hundreds and thousands of people in our city want to do that as well. So hopefully they'll get a chance to hear this and see this. But for you, Susan, as you look back, what were a few of the things that you're most proud of, that you're most grateful for, that were accomplished as part of your leadership as mayor of our city?
Well, first of all, I have to say, the mayor is the person that can connect the dots. And the more dots or people you engage, the more ideas you're going to have come forward. And I've always believed, if we're going to talk about something, are you really prepared, for council, put your hand in the air, to put the budget to it, to task staff to make it happen? These aren't my ideas. They're community ideas. I was involved in the first strategic plan of Brampton, where you work with countless numbers of people, start asking the public, what would make this city? What would you like to use the city that we don't have? And let's compile that whole list. And then together you prioritize it. You don't take your favorite project and make it number one. You take the community's favorite project and say, how do we enable this? You have to be surrounded by the best staff, the best. And I was surrounded by the best municipal staff anybody could ever have. I mean, as long as there was a collective will to do it, and council was prepared to put their hand in the air to move a project forward. I mean, think of the Rose Theater. I kept hearing, and I'm a sports person. And, when I was elected mayor, I can remember Michael Halls, Michael Halls. And he said, now, Susan, you can't just be a sports person. You're mayor, you have to be an arts person too. Well, of course, history will show I became such an arts person. The sports people said, hey, we want her back. But I would hear for years, we need a performing arts center. So when I became mayor, does everybody believe this is what we need to have? Yes, it is. So everyone's ready to vote for a process that'll make that happen. Yes, they are. Well, then let's do it. You need to have, a motion. You've got to put it together. You have to have the budget. Assign it to staff. Staff are the people professional in their field, and they will bring you back what it takes. And then if you're still saying, well, I think we can move forward, then you move forward. You go through a process. There's, process is your friend. Mm-hmm. I always said, process is your friend. You can't be independent. You can't take a shortcut. Process is your friend. So we ended up with a performing arts theater, second to none. I mean, it's acoustically perfect. And I remember, talking to arts people, they said, oh, we never thought we'd get this big stage. And listen, I was just repeating some of the qualities because I heard somebody else say it. I don't play an instrument, although I played the drums on stage with Jeff Salem one time because he was my teacher. And the symphony asked me to play something on stage. I thought, oh, here we go. But why not? Why turn it down? It's an opportunity. I've since sold my drums. But, whether it was the recreation centers or the complete renovation of Chinguacousy Park, what a park in the middle of our city, a park for families. All of the, and then, the economic development that's on the other side of that was the daytime fun. When Brampton is not in isolation. We live between, Mississauga and Vaughan and, Markham, Toronto, and communities we're not a city far away. So if economic development if a company wants to locate in the GTA, you've got to win them. You have to win it. You have to be able to make that company feel. I remember like Canon's head office or Air Canada Global Operations or these big companies. You have to have something different to say. And I finally said, I would sit in these meetings and the staff would explain how the zoning works and get your foundations in and all these steps they need to go through. I always remember I'd say, my style of doing business is the ball is always in your court. So if you ask us for something, I'm batting that back so fast that you're never going to be waiting on us. So that was really important. And then the other thing I'd say to them is, listen, let me tell you, you bring your employees here to Brampton. You can live, work, play, and pray in peace. We're the center of Canada, the center of the universe. It's when God always intended that people would live and work and play and pray in peace. I said, you have these employees for 8 hours a day. I have them for the rest. I guarantee you, I will send you back happy employees. They will enjoy time with their families. They'll be at the recreation center. They may be walking, bicycling. We'll create a quality of life. And if you keep your side of the bargain, you have happy and safe employees, and we're going to keep our side of the bargain, which is, happy and safe families. We have a city of character and just a place where people want to be involved. That was those sort of personal pledges that differentiated us, I think, from other communities. That was great. So yes, the recreational centers, we were putting up one every 3 years. I was very proud that everyone was paid for. First thing, when I first became mayor, Jamie, Hazel and I have been good friends for a long time. Of course, the hockey, we're both from Quebec and all that. She said to me, now, Susan, you've got to get your city debt free. She said, I can tell you're using debentures, which are like mortgages in a municipal term. You're using debentures to pay for park benches. okay, this is the first task Mayor Hazel has given me. So within 2 years, we were debt free and money in the bank. And then that's not, most municipalities cannot do that. It's not because, we're smarter in Brampton than they are. It's because we're a growing city and we were a city in demand. So we put in what's called development charges. If you're in a city that has no development, the last thing you're going to do is add a development charge to make you less competitive. But because Brampton is so strategically located, we put in the development charge, and that's money that you collect on every building permit, residential, commercial, industrial, and it's legislated. You can only use that money for the purposes it was collected. So you have a very extensive development charge bylaw. You collect so much for roads, so much for community centers, et cetera. You can't transfer one pot to the other. So you're always accumulating these funds. And I ran the city based on when you've saved up enough for the next rec center, you do it. So we were having enough growth, enough development charge revenue that we were able to provide these facilities that the public wanted. I mean, I think these rec centers are all well used.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. No.
We're lucky to get that. And Zoom transit, I was a transit person before transit was sexy to be talking about. I came from Montreal, and in Montreal, you didn't take a car downtown. You didn't take a car if you didn't need to. The traffic was crazy. We had a great subway system, and I couldn't understand why, we don't have more transit here. So I was always supporting the transit budget. And when I became mayor, with a staff team, came forward with this matrix that would connect Brampton to York University and Brampton down into Mississauga. We were sort of the corner around the other side of Pearson. So connecting that whole system around the GTA. Well, they developed the plan and council approved the plan. And listen, we don't have money for high transit on property tax bills. So we started going to Ottawa back and forth and meeting all the right ministers to seek funding for our Zoom, which would be like the L around the airport. Oh, we were successful. And then the following year or two, the provincial government came in with a plan called Move Ontario. And one of the criteria was for the next day, you had to have received money within that program earlier. Well, we were ahead of the program. I can remember meeting with the premier, consecutive meetings in Queen's Park, and you come in and they're sort of looking at you like, how much money are you going to want? I said, actually, I don't want any money. I'd like you to just add us to the definition of having done significant transit. So we're qualifying to be part of your new program. Then we'll be part of the program. Well, we were successful. So you see the Zoom and the LRT and the rapid transit, so many people benefiting by the exponential growth in transit. The Zoom, when it first came out, I'll tell you, they were going to call it the Flower City Runner, like the Bugs Bunny Runner.
Oh, okay.
I said, look, I was proud to restore the Flower City image. I was proud to get Brampton into communities that bloom. That brought civic pride and clean communities across the town. But I said, you don't have to put the word flower and everything. Let's come up with something really exciting. Animate the name. Well, they came up with this Zoom with the bouncing ball and all the ads, and people just felt good being on a Zoom bus. Everybody was suddenly giving it a try. It's been a great success.
Oh, and exactly. Yeah, no, I remember when it came out. Susan, Zoom, and it was exciting to have something new as a city, and just, those are huge pieces that you talk about. The Rose Theater, Zoom, the recreation centers in a growing city. What a blessing they've been. And I hope people are catching, and I'm sure you are, friends, as you watch and listen to this, that certainly the role of mayor, there is this vibrancy of person connecting with other people, and that's important. But there's also a level of leadership that is huge. And so again, Susan, thank you for the leadership that you've brought over the years.
Thank you.
Process is your friend, and trying to remove barriers so staff can do their work. Like, these are important things, taking care of the little things and follow, and trying to be economically sound and use resources that we've been given in an effective way. All these, like, such strong and faithful leadership. So, thank you. And I know people who are listening to this are leading now. And these are things that we can learn as we celebrate and think back to some of the things that our city has done and certainly continues to do. And it's a great time for us also to thanks to Patrick Brown, our current mayor, and pray for our politicians, guys. These are tough roles that we are so blessed in Brampton to have had good ones and continue to. And Susan, one thing I want to ask you about, because one of the unique things about Brampton, I think, as we all know, is the diversity within the city. And my sense is you were always a champion of that. You were always a celebrator of that. And obviously we're coming through a year where we need to continue to do even greater work around the diversity of our city and work for racial reconciliation and justice. And I know that has always been on your heart, to lead a city and live in a way that was really very real. So tell us a little bit about your experience, because I know you've had some experiences that many of us wouldn't have, just being a part of the different cultures and gatherings in our city, just the beautiful diversity that God has blessed Brampton with.
Well, we might be diverse in our looks, appearances, and the way we express faith. But what I learned, at least how my takeaway is, it didn't matter what I was attending or who I was meeting, whether it was a house or a banquet hall or whatever. I said, we're so diverse, we're not diverse. I meet people from all over the world, and there's the sameness, a total sameness about everybody. Everybody loves their children. Everybody wants their parents to live forever. Everybody wants to be healthy and happy. Everybody wants to get along. Now, I know there are, some people that have some struggles, and, you'd say, well, not everybody wants us to get along. Well, maybe that's because they didn't have the opportunity to feel what it's like to be in an accepted community. That's why I wanted to mention to you, unique in Brampton, we have people coming from all over the world. So part of your day is your work day, your family day, but part is your spiritual day. And if you feel at peace in your language and in your faith, I think that adds value to your feeling of wellness. So people used to come to the mayor's office and planning and say, we're renting space for our place of worship, sometimes at a movie theater or sometimes at another church. And people were trying to establish their own place to gather. And so we came up with a place of worship study. I think you're around for this.
Yeah, absolutely.
When we first did it, in politics over time, you always have people that, want to be contrary because maybe they want to run. I remember people saying, we're not going to be allowed to have prayer in our home or something. Oh my God, I had to go to the public meeting and say, this has nothing to do with this. This is about a place of worship study where we are going to say, let me just take a step back. When you plan a subdivision in Brampton, what we do is called a block plan. They do all the streets according to what the official plan for Brampton says, the density and so on. But we also delineate where the parks are going to be and what kind of park it's going to be. And we also have to show the school sites. That's why schools have sites to go to in new subdivisions. And I said, well, why aren't we providing, it's institutional zoning, why aren't we providing land for place of worship? Well, that was never been done in Canada before. I don't think it's been done since. But the developer is required to take that parcel of land if they can't build on it. It might have an overlay of houses if nobody picks up the option, but they have to protect that land for 10 years at the value it was when they developed it. So it used to be, if people came to town, if they got lucky, they'd find out about a little parcel, and by gosh, they could go and buy that and establish their place of worship. All of a sudden, it didn't have to be, if you were lucky, it came to the planning department. They would hand you a list of 2-acre sites, 5-acre sites, 10-acre sites, and who all them. And if you're interested, go and call them up. And, well, what did you see happen? I mean, just going out Steeles around McLaughlin Road, because that's a newer area, so you can see it. So you go down McLaughlin and down that area. And where do you have? You've got the Gurdwara and Axer Temple. You go a little further out Steeles, and you have the magnificent Polish church that's there. And if you just turn your eyes a little bit over, there's the Bulgarian Orthodox Church. I mean, when you go around Brampton, you're seeing places of worship of countries that, what an amazing thing. And if anyone's listening, that's an artist. I'm not an artsy person, but I had this idea. When you see Toronto skyline, it's Toronto because you see the CN Tower. When you look at Mississauga skyline now in a picture, you've got those architecture, very stunning buildings, the Marilyn Monroe buildings. So what could Brampton have? I'm thinking, can you imagine even a black and white where all the shapes, where all the steeples or tops of the various places of worship? What a print that would be. It doesn't have to be a picture. They could just be all across. I mean, look in the north end of Highway 10, that beautiful Ahmadi Muslim place of worship. Oh my God, those are fine, fine people. And then just past that is the new Coptic church. And, people are saying to me, like, oh my gosh, what is this Coptic church? And I said, these are people, Coptic Christians, are Christians in Egypt where they're persecuted. When they first put up that church, they were hoping to have police protection. I said, oh, you don't need that in Brampton.
Wow.
I mean, just think I've only said that in 60 seconds. How many of these churches come, the people, their descendants or their families are from countries all over the world. And they're not just here living in the house down the street for a group neighborhood street barbecue. We went to lots of those, but they're actually here in presence and in faith. And I've never been in one that hasn't wished that everybody else in town would come and hear what they're all about. Really, really, the doors are open in every faith. Mm-hmm. It's just incredible to see what these communities of faith do and celebrate. And I think, what a marvelous thing. Again, for economic development. If you're moving a company from somewhere in the world and you're transferring people, and you could say, there's a place of worship or things are familiar, it's an easier integration. It was easier to establish and be successful. Gosh, even putting the French high schools in Brampton, and we were talking to companies, in Quebec. So, well, if we're going to relocate people, the kids they want their families to go to French school. It's the English families want to go to French school. So just to be able to learn language, I think is, yes, I got to the point where I could do a countdown from 10 different languages, because if you attend a business opening, we always do the ribbon cutting. Everybody participates in 9/8. I remember the first time I did it in Punjabi, everybody flopped it.
That's great.
Oh, well, look at our beautiful Portuguese parish down by the police headquarters. Oh, my God. They used to be at St. Mary's Church in downtown Brampton. Then they built their own church. I mean, it opened on Mother's Day. And because, again, politics invades your family time, I took my mother to that church for Mother's Day. And she said, well, I don't know any Portuguese. I said, well, we don't need to. They have a fine organ. Let's just enjoy it.
Exactly.
Well, we can imagine they were expressing praise for God and thank you for this blessing. And the music was tremendous. When I had double knee surgery, Father Adam said to me, well, we've arranged it with Poland and all of the people that need to be at the opening of that Polish church. And I said, gee, I'm having double knee surgery like early April. He said, well, it's opening May 22nd. I said, gee, that's 5 weeks. I don't know. He says, well, you have to be there. I went, I was there in a wheelchair, but I was there. So it was, and that, I mean, all of these places of worship, yours included, the doors are open. People are welcome to come into any parish during 9/11. The principal board at the big Gurdwara at Dixie and Derry, they were calling the mayor's office saying, if anybody's stuck for food or a place to stay, we have lots of room here. Come on, this is like generosity exponentially grown because we've brought people from all over the world that are pioneers in making things happen, who are generous of spirit, sure people say, well, I don't like this or that. Well, you know what? We all find something that we may do differently, but, we're all still human. So I think you have to be kind to people.
Yeah.
Be kind to listen, take the opportunity. I mean, when the girls won one of the Olympic Games, I was involved with the National Women's Hockey League. So they would lend me Jana Hefford. Now she's in the Hockey Hall of Fame. I'd say, Jana, can I borrow your Olympic medal? Most people have never, outside of TV, they've never seen it. Well, I drove this around to seniors' homes. I put it on them. I take their picture. And, what a thrill for people. I brought the Olympic torch to some homes. I remember driving down a street in Brampton, and Olympics are always in February, and there were a bunch of kids. It was daylight today. It was very mild out. Kids were road hockey. Road hockey. They'll want to see this. So I just pulled the car over. Hey, kids, come on over. You ever seen Olympic medal? Well, there wasn't a child that didn't. It was one of the big round ones, like a CD disc. So they all recognized it. Oh, gee, they were putting it on. I was taking their picture. And then I went over. I had to pick up some medication or something at my pharmacy. And I thought, oh, have you ever seen an Olympic medal? No. I said, hold on, I'll be right back. I go to the car, I bring it in. He puts it on, take his picture. I go back in there like a month or two later. He's got it framed on the wall. I mean, I just thought it would make him feel good. I mean, so many people, just taking what the mayor has an opportunity to do, things that share it. I'm only enabled to be the mayor by the support of the people. So I want to bring all those opportunities to the people. Why not share it?
Absolutely. Oh, love it, Susan. And the energy that you bring, the love for the city, it's still there. No question about it. Not surprised with that at all. What is life like for you now, like in retirement? And I think people would love to just hear how there's been blessings for you in that as well. And just maybe sort of what you see as next for you. As far as what's on the agenda. Mm-hmm.
Well, one thing is you get older, you realize that healthy is wealthy. This is what really matters. If you have your health and you can go for a walk, and some people say, yeah, well, I'm not doing so well, and I can't even walk. I said, what? Can you talk? Can you open your eyes? Can you see the sunshine? Can you see your family? It's not just health is wealth. Life is wealth. Life. Well, if you're here and your heart is beating, you can interact today. Look at this technology we're using. I mean, I had to take a course from Leah just to figure this out because it's not familiar, let's say. But I mean, my husband and I, we couldn't be happier. I mean, after almost 30 years in politics, I often said, I'm lucky I had a family to go back to. That they have, like, who are you? Sometimes I was away, you leave early in the morning, you're back, late at night, 24/7. And I used to joke sometimes. I have a big German Shepherd dog. And I said, one of these days I'm going to come in the door and he's not going to let me in. He's like, who are you? So I was always very grateful. I could, show him ID and say, it's okay. It's me, silly. Let me in. But, it's a wonderful time to still, even though we're home and we'll stay home until there's a vaccine. And, you can pick up the phone to friends you haven't talked to in a while. You can write a little note to somebody. I love writing little notes and the old-fashioned way, a stamp. Not everybody has email and electronic communication. And as you get older, you realize you have friends who are getting older too. And if your friends were older than you when you were working, then they're older than you still. And to be able to, the week before Hazel's birthday, I called her up, and 100 years old,
Wow.
She was amazing. And we were chatting away. And I think it was the week before. Well, I might have talked to her a week before, but it was during the World Juniors. We had a great talk because we both like hockey. And we were talking about these hockey games of which player and, the workhorse from Whitehorse, Cousins up there, and the great job he was doing. And we were just having a great time. And then she said, well, I'm going to watch the final game at my son's house. And I said, no, you're not. Imagine me saying that to her 100 years. No, you're not. What do you mean I'm not? I said, the final game is at 9:00 at night. You'd be driving home at midnight. You're right. I'm not. I'm going to go for dinner. Then I'm going to come home. But I got off the phone and I thought, I just had a 40-minute conversation with a person who's been alive for 100 years. It's inspiring because we can all do that if we're fortunate enough to have the health. Why not? Think of the things you want to do, whether it's John and I like the sort of vacations where you see natural scenery, and there's been some good shows on TV lately. One of them was Yellowstone. That's the latest thing. So I heard about it in December, and you take the remote and you speak into your remote now. It's quite modern. And I said, Yellowstone in December. It hadn't come out yet. But I saw a wonderful documentary on Yellowstone National Park. So I said, John, come, we watched it together. So now we hope that this summer or next summer, we'll have a chance to drive through Yellowstone Park and see those wonderful features. I mean, we live in North America. You've got some of the most beautiful sites. Yeah. And there's a lot right in our city. We go for walks along, the various Etobicoke Creek and the Fletcher's Creek. And we have two watersheds in Brampton. The Humber watershed, which is Etobicoke Creek, which goes through the downtown, does end up at Humber Bay. That is the Humber River. And the Credit watershed, which is on the other side of Highway 10, sort of meanders down to Mimico and down to Port Credit. So, these are beautiful watersheds, beautiful parks along them. Anybody can, go and enjoy just the sound of a babbling, or watch an ice jam slowly moving. Marvelous things to see and do. Marvelous things.
That's awesome. Well, I think this is a great place for us to end today, just to enjoy our life, whatever stage we're at, and make the most of it. And as I said earlier, Susan, just have seen you continue to do that. And I also want to say, hey, please say thanks to John. We've celebrated the work that you, and I love the way that you have just made it so clear that it's not just about you, it's about the teams of people that you were blessed to work with. But John was a huge part of that. He might have been at home. I know he got out to the.
He's still working. Are you kidding? Well, he's a pilot, so he's a flight test examiner.
Okay.
So they're always there's always people that need their flight test, whether it's commercial, multi-engine, instrument, whatever. He's the authorized guy that you've got to book a flight with, that goes up in the air and says, "Yep, you're good." So
that's great.
He's still doing that, and he enjoys it. That's
awesome.
Great.
Well, say hi to John and thank him for us as well for all that he's done to make our city the great place that it is. And thanks, Susan, so much again for joining us on the Good News podcast today. So inspiring to hear you talk about not only what has happened over the years, but also the way we can enjoy our life and make the most of it today, and reach out with a card or a call or a text. There's just so many ways to reach people. And during this pandemic, I think we all desire and need that connection. So friends, the good news is that God continues to bless us, and we can make a difference in such simple ways sometimes. So I encourage you to do that, to live into that. Thanks again, Susan, for joining us on the Good News podcast today.
Well, thank you for giving me this opportunity. And if anybody is listening that, needs some help with anything, people call me all the time saying, how do I do this? And that's what mayors did. That's what I do. You just connect the dots. I mean, you just help people. So I'm happy to do it. Always.
That's awesome. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. God bless you, and I hope you have a great day. We will see you again soon. Next week, our Good News podcast will feature Theo Fleury, the NHL player. He's got quite a story, and we'll get into that a little bit, and also just some amazing work that he's doing these days to help support people around mental wellness and addiction issues. So you'll enjoy that one with Theo Fleury. That's next week. Thanks again, Susan, for being a part of the Good News podcast. God bless you, everyone.
God bless you too. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Good News podcast with Jamie Holtham. If you liked what you heard today, please share it with a friend who may benefit from today's conversation. And if you want to hear more, be sure to subscribe to this show and turn on your notifications so you never miss an episode. Thanks again. We hope you enjoyed today's discussion, and we'll see you next time.